How's it going, everyone? So today we're going to talk about the potential we could see a Christmas snowstorm pattern. So take a look at the latest run of the European model. So this is as of right now. We do have a small chart that's what we do. But let's fast forward all the way to right around the Christmas time frame, because I'm sure many of you guys in the Northeast are just hoping for that next big snow event, and the European model is showing that possibility by the time we approach Christmas. So let's take a look at that. So if we were to move to around this December 21st time frame, we do see our first snowstorm move into the Northeast. This brings a narrow amount of snowfall right over western Pennsylvania, upstate New York, as well as Vermont and New Hampshire and West Virginia. And it is quite a powerful nor'easter at this time, where we have the millibar pressure right around 1,000 millibars, which isn't extremely strong, but we clearly see that it's producing a heavy amount of precipitation. So snowfall would be heavy at times in a scenario like this. But then moving even more forward, there could be another possibility of a major winter storm right around the Christmas time frame, where we do see that this snow does impact the areas that are far closer to the coast, pretty much right up along the coastal Northeast, where Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston get involved with accumulating snowfall. We have this big, very pronounced jet stream dip right over the eastern United States. So the cold air is sufficient enough, as well as the instability, for a significant snowstorm to occur for the Northeast. But this is, of course, very far out. We're going over 300 hours out at this point, so take this with a huge grain of salt. But another trend that I've also saw with the GFS model is that it's also taking somewhat of a jet stream dip to the eastern United States, but it's not necessarily developing a winter storm like the GFS model. So the GFS model, we see that it eventually does develop a small jet stream dip right over the eastern United States, but is it anywhere near as pronounced and as impactful as what we would see in the European model scenario? So there's still a high amount of uncertainty and disagreements between the two most reliable computer models, which definitely does make this forecast a lot more difficult to really get any sort of certainty with this far out. But it's at least something to keep an eye on over the next few days. We're going to need to see if this trend continues, where at least both of the computer models are taking some sort of jet stream dip or polar vortex by the time we approach the December 20th, 21st time frame, as that would be the first step in terms of creating the possibility of a snowstorm right around the Christmas time frame. So we're going to stay tuned to what these two computer models say over the next several days, as of course there's bound to be plenty of changes over the next few days. But it's at least somewhat interesting that right around the same time period, they do bring a jet stream dip to the eastern United States, which could show maybe a little bit of agreement regarding the possibility of an Arctic blast moving through the Christmas time frame. But of course, you need more than an Arctic blast to create a major snowstorm. You need the instability as well, and there's not even a 100% chance that this Arctic blast will come for fruition during this time. So still a high amount of uncertainty, but I'll make sure to keep you guys updated. Another good thing to take a look at is the Arctic oscillation forecast, and we clearly see we're expected to be in a negative phase, and more specifically, it should be at one of its strongest points right around the Christmas time frame when it comes to how far in the negatives this oscillation or this index is, which could indicate that we're more likely to see a more pronounced jet stream dip right around the Christmas time frame after being slightly closer to the neutral phase during, I'll say, the December 17th, December 18th time frame. By the time we approach Christmas, there could be another peak when it comes to how far in negatives we reach, which could enhance the possibility of an Arctic blast and a snowstorm. So we'll also take a look at this index over the next few days to really determine that possibility of a major winter storm for the Northeast by the time we approach Christmas. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated. However, I know this is very far out, but let's take a quick look at the potential of what this Christmas snowstorm pattern could bring to the Northeast. We're talking about a large area of over 3 to 6 inches of snowfall, as well as 6 to 12 inches of snowfall in the more interior portions. And this is impacting all the major cities in Northeast Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston, which is definitely important, at least to keep this in the back of your mind over the next few days and weeks as we approach Christmas, because this could be very impactful, especially since many Americans travel right around December 21st, December 22nd timeframe, right when the kids are getting out of school, and I'm sure many of you guys are getting out of work as well. So it's at least something to be aware of over the next few days. Still a lot of uncertainty, but with both the computer models at least taking somewhat of a jet stream dip right around this time, it's always at least good to take that into consideration. Of course, the big thing that would be required for a major winter storm pattern to develop right around Christmas time frame is a very pronounced jet stream dip. So what the European model is forecasting is that it's expecting an upper level low to come off the Pacific Northwest coast and then eventually move eastward. But then eventually, this is what both of the computer models are agreeing with. There should be a small trough that could dip southward, and if this trough is able to dip far south enough to interact with this upper level low, we could be talking about a very significant jet stream dip where temperatures will be much colder than average, and more importantly, would create a more significant snowstorm for the East Coast. But the GFS model isn't expecting that same trough right just north of the United States-Canadian border to dip as far south. We see that while both the GFS model and the European model agree that there should be an upper level low and a small trough just north of the United States-Canadian border, the GFS model heavily disagrees on how far south this will go. But the fact that they're at least around the ballpark when it comes to timing, as well as the fact that they're both bringing somewhat of a jet stream dip right around this time period, could give this forecast a little bit more validity, or at least there could be a little bit more truth to a forecast like this, that maybe around this time frame we could see an Arctic blast. So I'm leaning a little bit more to that idea, but there's still a lot of time to really for the computer models to really adjust their forecast. So just stay tuned for more updates. However, that's not the only snowstorm threat we could see in the more long-term future, because there could be not one, but two snowstorms in the Midwest by as early as next week. So if we were to take a quick look at the European model, we see that we do see this trough move through. It's going to bring some snowfall to the interior portions of Northeast, which I'll get into further detail in just a second. But going into the more long-term future, let's take a look at the 12Z run, because this shows the long-term forecast. So continuing to move forward, we do see an upper level low that could bring maybe some isolated snow showers into the southern Great Lakes region. This would happen the weekend of December 14th, or Saturday, I should say, where you might see some isolated snow squalls in a scenario like this. But the GFS model is forecasting a different scenario where the snowstorm is definitely much more impactful, where we definitely see in a scenario like this a much larger area of 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, and this could impact cities like Des Moines, maybe Milwaukee could get involved, Green Bay, Wisconsin could get involved, and northern Michigan as well. So this would be more impactful in a scenario like this. Now, the key that will determine the possibility we see a more impactful snowstorm or not will, of course, depend on the amount of instability. The GFS model at this point is forecasting more troughing and this low pressure system to be more in contact with the jet stream. So we see much more instability as a result. We see a pressure gradient between this low and this ridge that's bringing a strong southerly flow that's forcing that warm, very moist Gulf of Mexico air mass further northward to interact with this cold air and create a more impactful snowstorm. While for the European model scenario, it is expecting the same, mainly because it expects the jet stream to be a lot more straightened out, and it doesn't help that there isn't really much cold air that's going to be behind it either, as there's going to be another ridge just to the west of this storm system, which should limit the jet stream from being able to provide this low pressure system with more cold air and instability for a more significant snowstorm to occur, which is exactly what we see right here. We do see some rain showers, but pretty much no snowfall accumulation at all associated with this storm system. So we're going to definitely keep a close eye on this. Let me show you guys the 500 millibar height anomaly. This gives a better idea of what I'm talking about. We see that the cold air is way to the north in Canada, but this ridge is just blocking it from ever being in contact with it. So we don't see enough instability for a significant snowstorm to occur compared to the GFS model, where yes, it is somewhat blocked by a jet stream, but there's definitely more cold air that's supplied with it, creating more instability for a more impactful snowstorm to occur. So at least be aware of this in the southern Great Lakes region for the snowstorm, because you could see anywhere between 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, and who knows, it could be even more than that. We're still around 5 days out, and a lot could change within 5 days. But at this point, I think it's still more likely it won't be necessarily a major snowstorm. So I'd expect maybe this could be maximum around 5 to 8 inches of snowstorms, a 5 to 8 inch type snowstorm. But I think more likely it'll be around the 1 to 3 range, or potentially not even a snowstorm at all. When it comes to the low pressure system moving in by this coming weekend. So just stay tuned for more updates, and I'll give you guys more in detail forecast once you get a little bit more certainty with the forecast. Now, that isn't the only snowstorm either where we're taking a look at, because the European model is forecasting a more impactful snowstorm that could happen in the more long-term future for the Midwest, that could impact the more populated areas as well. So let's take a look back at the 12Z run. So continuing to move forward, we do have another upper level low that's expected to move in. And then there's this first snowstorm, could happen right around December 17th, but it's not over just yet, because we have another more significant snowstorm moving in as well, where this impacts much more the populated areas. Kansas City is getting involved with very heavy snowfall, Chicago, Milwaukee, a large portion of Michigan, as this would be very impactful in a scenario like this. Now, the reason is because the European model is much more lenient on bringing a more significant jet stream dip by the time we approach the mid to late December timeframe, which is the same reason why I want to bring a Christmas snowstorm pattern to the Northeast, while the GFS model is less lenient on that at this point. So moving forward, we do see a small trough move in, but the jet stream dip is a lot less significant. The cold air doesn't move as far south, and we see a lot more ridging just to the west of this storm system. So that greatly limits the amount of instability and cold air for a significant snowstorm to develop. And we see the same with another trough that's moving in, just not enough of a jet stream dip for anything significant to occur out of this. So there, of course, a lot of uncertainty with this forecast at this point. We're really going to need to see how the jet stream will dip by the time we approach the mid-December timeframe, which we won't know probably until this weekend, late this week into this weekend. So let's take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly. At this point, we see that just too much ridging for much of any snow to develop out of this, while if we were to take a look at the European models forecast at the same time period, at the 180-hour mark, look at how much more cold air there is really for a significant snowstorm to impact the Midwest. And we have another one as well, thanks to the lack of ridging we're seeing right over this area, while the GFS model in the same time period, just way too much ridging for anything to occur. So definitely stay tuned for this. The European model would definitely promote more snowfall, not just for the Northeast, but the Midwest as well. So definitely keep this in mind over the next few days. Now, to talk about something with far more certainty, we have a snowstorm that's almost guaranteed. Well, it's pretty much guaranteed. That's going to impact the interior Northeast at this time within the next 96 hours, as this should move in right around the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. We see very heavy snowfall in the western portion of Pennsylvania, as well as upstate New York, as in these areas you could expect anywhere between 3 to 5 to potentially 6 to 12 inches of snowfall, depending on how high of an elevation you're at. I think the GFS model right now is a bit too lenient on snow. There shouldn't be that much cold air for the area of snowfall to be that large. So most likely we're going to see a scenario that's more similar to what the European model is forecasting, where the heaviest snowfall should be mainly relegated to the higher elevations of upstate New York as well as Pennsylvania. And of course, the lake effect snow will be very impactful for much of Pennsylvania, the Great Lakes like Buffalo, and into the Waterford area of upstate New York. Those areas should expect feet of snowfall from not only this snowstorm, but what's going to come after it, which is this strong lake effect snow. The wind should be quite strong as well. We do have a pressure gradient, so it should be much cooler than average for a couple of days as well for much of Northeast. So definitely be prepared for that. So here's how the snowfall is looking like when it comes to this upcoming snowstorm that should impact you guys right around the Tuesday to Wednesday timeframe. We see that most of of Western Pennsylvania, more specifically the higher elevations, should expect mainly 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. But right up along lake effect snow areas is where you should expect 5 to 8 inches of snowfall. Right on Waterford, you could experience up to a foot of snowfall, so definitely keep that in mind. The Adirondacks, mostly a large area of 3 to 5. Same goes for the higher elevations of New Hampshire and Vermont, and mostly 1 to 3 inches right around the Maine region. So definitely keep that in mind going into the Wednesday to Tuesday timeframe. And for the Great Lakes coast right up along Michigan, you should expect anywhere between 3 to 5 to 1 to 3 inches and 5 to 8 inches in the northern coast of Michigan. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see even more weather-related content, and I hope you guys all have a great day.